To be one of the biggest bands in Australia takes a certain amount of skill, class, and creativity that some musicians dream of having. This certainly was the case for Australian reggae rock band Sticky Fingers throughout the 2010s. Their genre-bending sound and relatable laid-back demeanour propelled them to the upper echelon of the Australian alternative music scene over the past 10 years. Though in the age of the internet and information, the band has struggled to maintain a positive public image due to their alleged poor social behaviour. For these reasons, they were one of the first big names in the country to be quote-unquote cancelled, most notably by one of the largest media outlets in Australia and former strong advocates of Stifi, Triple J. So why did all of this happen? How did Sticky Fingers go from Triple J stalwarts to the Triple J blacklist? Sticky Fingers were formed in Sydney when bassist Paddy Cornwell and drummer Beaker Best met lead singer Dylan Frost in Newtown while he was busking. They began to play local shows and released a couple of independent EPs while they developed their reggae rock steady sound. Eventually the band applied to play at Newtown Festival and were rejected twice by the promoters. In response to the rejections, they set up their own stage in a friend's backyard that was nearby the festival. The Renegade performance caught the attention of festival goers and promoter Dan Hume, who would go on to work with the band on 4 of their albums. With word of mouth spreading about the ballsy backyard concert, Sticky Fingers began to grow a larger local following and eventually received heavy rotation on local Australian alternative youth radio station Triple J. In 2013, the band released their debut album, Caress Your Soul, and their single Australia Street reached number 70 in that year's Triple J Hottest 100. From there, Sticky Fingers and Triple J were as inseparable as Shaggy and Scooby, with consistent airplay given to the band, and twice they were invited on for a like a version performance. They would continue to play songs in multiple Hottest 100s, with the release of their next 2 albums, Land of Pleasure and Westway The Glitter in the Slums, both of which reached number 3 and number 1 respectively on the ARIA charts. They played sellout shows and festival spots all around the country and began to tour the world to grow an international audience. In 2016, they were arguably one of the biggest bands in the country, and it looked like the world was at their feet. In late 2016 though, the band announced that they would be going on an indefinite hiatus due to internal issues, and this is when the accusations started building up. The initial allegations were that lead singer Dylan Frost was racist due to his involvement in a local performance by an Indigenous band called Dispossessed, where a crowd member told the band to just play a song while they were speaking about Indigenous issues on the stage. The affair was caught on camera and uploaded to YouTube, where Frost is clearly present, although it is quite unclear as to his involvement in the altercation as the audio and visual is quite poor quality. Dylan was then involved in another incident with Indigenous musician Thelma Plum, who shared her experience online of how Frost verbally abused and spat on her. People supposed that these issues coincided with Sticky Fingers' choice to go on an indefinite hiatus, and the rumours began to gather more and more steam throughout 2017 while they remained silent. During this year, Dylan was diagnosed with schizophrenia and attended alcohol rehabilitation. In 2018, the band decided to break their silence through an interview on Triple J's political show, Hack, where they would comment on the allegations about their so-called racist and sexist behaviour. The interview would be best described as a train wreck for the band, with Tom Tilley pressing them on issues and asking them to comment on how and why these incidents happened. They were slightly able to clarify Dylan's innocence at the Dispossessed show, but struggled to sound apologetic in regards to Dylan's behaviour towards Thelma Plum. Here's what they said.
But I guess what people want to know is, like, what specifically are you sorry for?
I guess 10 years of being in a drunken, debaucherous rock and roll band, we've pissed off a few people along the way, and we haven't really played by the rules at any point of our kind of ride.
What have you done to piss people off? Be specific.
I guess we've just been drunk and debaucherous, and we haven't really thought about it, but 5 dudes sort of rolling around the joint, half pissed, taking the piss, it's probably scared a few people.
Dylan, a lot of the accusations have been against you as an individual, but you're the one who's not really talking in this interview. Can you explain to me why that is?
I guess I'm not that good at interviews, you know. And in the past, my violence in my past, under the influence, I guess, fucking boys will be boys, you know. And that's not what I'm here to promote. I promote peace and love. You know what I mean?
What did you mean when you just said boys will be boys?
Shit happens, man.
This response garnered way more public backlash for the band, especially because of the boys will be boys comment, Ironically, Stella Donnelly had recently released a song with that very phrase as its title, which had been making the rounds on the station and ultimately condemning the saying. The band's previous actions and the interview put a final nail in the coffin of the band's public image, and from that point Triple J silently blacklisted Sticky Fingers, refusing to play their old material and any of their new songs which were released that year. Along with this, many other bands and artists threatened to leave festival lineups that included Sticky Fingers on the bill, which prompted the band to pull themselves from pretty much every show they had with other artists in that year. Triple J's blacklisting from the station was met with mixed responses from fans, with many people applauding the station for taking a stand against them, and others calling on them to give Sticky Fingers another chance. Many people were also quick to point out any other bands that Triple J would continue to play which had members with less than perfect images. Take for example rap group 1-4, who had some members convicted to jail for king hitting a guy in a bar. The station continued without them though, and gave more airtime to similar sounding artists such as Ocean Alley and Great Gable. After Sticky Fingers released their new album in 2019, Yours to Keep, it reached number 4 on the ARIA charts, and the band sold out stadium shows around the country. It seemed that their major fan base was still willing to support them despite the negative public image. Also in this year, bassist Paddy released a drunken online tirade on Triple J calling them maggots. He later apologized for the videos. In late 2019, Triple J announced that they would be counting down a fan-voted Hottest 100 of the decade. This perked the attention of Sticky Fingers fans, with many believing some of their songs should be included in the count. When the countdown aired in early 2020, 3 Stiffy songs made the count, and Triple J willingly played each song in their respective spots without much fanfare from the presenters on the station. After the countdown, the station did not continue to play any Stiffy songs and remained silent on the matter. Over time, this issue has calmed down a bit on the internet, and members of Sticky Fingers have tried to publicly reconcile their image. Despite these attempts, many people on the web still remain firmly of the belief that Sticky Fingers are scum and don't deserve any attention or publicity at all. Even to the point of me just making this video about them I know will trigger some people. I would like to delve a bit more into this issue though, and talk about how I think we can collectively move forward with Sticky Fingers, because I know if you're watching this video you either were a fan of theirs or still may be. Even when I was making this video I thought about making it neutral or even slightly negative towards the band, but the more I researched the issue, the more I felt like understanding the situation better. The first thing that I would like to point out is that I wholeheartedly believe that Sticky Fingers screwed up and some of their actions were completely inappropriate. They were also clearly silent for too long and too unapologetic when interviewed about it. I would also like to point out that I am not a fan of cancel culture and blacklisting, but I know it's a reality in the modern day. I'd like to think I can separate art from the artist, and I want to be willing to forgive people who learn from their mistakes and grow. I want to share some more words from Sticky Fingers themselves that I think help clarify that they are remorseful, that they have learned from their mistakes, and they're trying to do better. The pianist of the group, Freddy Crab, went on an indigenous podcast called Deadly Podcasts in 2020 to further clarify the incidents that occurred with Dylan in 2016. Here's what he said.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess we can sort of start where the kind of initial allegation kind of came from, and it was centered around our lead singer Dylan, who was at a gig by Indigenous punk band called Dispossessed, at a venue called Red Rattler in Sydney. And Dispossessed, in between songs, I think I was speaking about, dispossession, colonisation, and there were a group of people that just yelled out halfway. This is the best of my knowledge through speaking to people about, because I wasn't there, but they were sort of yelling out things like play the next song, and just a whole lot of disrespectful stuff, and Dispossessed kind of looked at this, and there was what became a bit of a shouting match between this group in the crowd and the band, and they ended up stopping the show, and Dylan was amongst these groups of people, and I got a call from him the next day, and he sort of called me up and said, nothing happened. Like I was in there, but I didn't, I wasn't hurling racial abuse or anything. I was trying to, I really was. And I believed him. Like, I know Dylan, and I know he's not that kind of person, but ultimately what was really at fault there was that, as a band, and seeing that happened, and Dispossessed were calling out Dylan, and it started to get more traction and people carrying on. And my biggest regret, I think I say this on behalf of all the band, is that we didn't actually say enough. You know, we didn't actually really, we didn't acknowledge really that at all. We kind of, it was like a sweeping it under the rug. And it was, even if there wasn't, you know, Dylan didn't exactly say anything racially abusive or not, we as a band with that kind of following basically sort of said to all, you know, our Indigenous fans, Indigenous people, that like, we don't care. And to do that is that is a real privilege to have, to say that you can just be accused of racist and not have to care. You know, it's like how easy is that to just do that? And that, you know, that still pains me even just talking about it now. Like I'm just sort of in a lot of deep regret about that. But what happened further with that is that this got, you know, news around other musicians and performers, and particularly Thelma Plum, who for a lot of the audience actually probably didn't realise that we were actually quite good friends at the time. Like she was dating a friend of mine, Nick Loopy, another lifelong friend, and, you know, she kind of messaged me and saying, you know, what's going on with this, you know, and I told her, like, you know, the band's decided we're just not going to say anything, and she was quite rightfully so, very angered by that. And you know, when it was soon after that, I can't exactly remember the dates, but soon after, she saw Dylan out at a pub, and, you know, she'd sort of gone up and, you know, said he's racist, and it just turned into a big shouting match and went on the street, and then, you know, it was just very messy. Dylan trying to fight Nick, and then, you know, Thelma obviously feeling pretty threatened by, you know, Dylan being drunk and you know, trying to fight her boyfriend and just his general behaviour. And that was where, you know, this really started to, you know, for us, really shit hitting the fan. But a big part of it was like not addressing this and not being able to talk about this. And that's where I really, like, it's highlighted that kind of, I guess, that privilege of ours, that we can kind of, you know, for people that haven't experienced racism, can just do that.
Freddy also goes on to share what they did wrong and what he and the band are doing to improve, learn, and ultimately reconcile their actions and image.
Do you think that Sticky Fingers acknowledge that the behaviour is definitely not right? You know, what do you think there?
I think so. We have. When we came back, we made quite an extensive post about it. It sort of felt like it wasn't still getting heard. It felt like people still didn't quite receive the message that, I don't know, for some that wanted. It was. I think it was quite difficult as well, as because I think the most powerful thing in this is not necessarily a post, right? Like you can't just sort of deny that you're, you know, you're a racist. You know, you can't just say that. You actually have to show in your action, like, what 100%. You care about, and demonstrate in your actions what your values are. We were looking to kind of end the situation, not end the band, but go on a hiatus for a bit and get him into kind of rehab and get him seeking help. But, you know, what we didn't do very well at all was communicate this message, because it looked like, when we sort of cited mental health, it was like, that's an excuse for, you know, for racism. And it's just like, no,
I think that's
not. Like,
I think that's what
silly. And I think that's what I sort of, like, our deepest regret is that, like, we didn't say the right things, and we didn't, and that's what we've got to really, you know, look back on and say, well, like, to some extent, like that, absolutely, like, you know, we should have been able to, and we should have been able to kind of talk about this more and engage this. And
I know that we've spoken about it, so you have actually taken accountability. You found ways to jump on board and get some education and actually engage on a intimate level with some Aboriginal people through music.
Yeah, well, that's, I guess during that time when we, you know, after those instances and we had on our hiatus, you know, I was sort of describing before that I was kind of in, you know, I was all over the place myself, and I wanted to search for these music experiences. And as I was kind of thinking that, you know, I was out one night and I came across a friend of mine, Alex, who was working for an organisation called Beyond Empathy. in Moree. And she basically said to me that she wanted, she had $10,000 to build a studio through a grant from, I think, Ted Noff's foundation. And she said, do you know anyone that can build a studio? And that was like, bang, that sort of, it just clicked in me and was like, we just built a studio with the band, like through a friend of ours. His name's Mouse, an Irish fella, works at a rehearsal studio in Marrickville, and he helped us build our own little studio. And I just thought, like, this is the moment. Like, this is the opportunity where this is kind of what I'm searching for, and this is an in. And I thought, like, let's do it. And just Dylan coming out of rehab, Paddy, our bass player, was in mental hospital. I thought, like, you know, let's go out and let's go see what's happening in Moree, and let's go do this. And it only felt like it was a positive thing.
If you heard this and are still convinced that Sticky Fingers are scum, I would like to challenge you on that. After you listen to the context of those incidents, do you really think that Dylan and Sticky Fingers are racist and sexist? I don't think so. Did they screw up? Yes. Are they trying to do better? I think so. As far as the hack interview goes, they screwed up with that big time too. I think we really just want to hear them say sorry, but they didn't know how to articulate that at the time for some reason. I think it was pretty clear that Tom Tilley was really putting them under the pump too, in particular Dylan, and he just wasn't prepared to give a proper answer. I know it sounded like they tried to use alcohol and mental health as an excuse, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say they were just poorly prepared for that interview, and Tom Tilley knew how to press them hard. I think Freddie's words on the podcast helped clarify how they really felt and how they realized later that silence wasn't the answer. Everyone makes mistakes, and it takes a lot to forgive sometimes, but I think we can try to forgive this band a bit better on a whole. To add to this, the bassist Paddy was convicted of an 18-month sentence served in the community for bashing his bandmate Dylan in an alleyway in 2019. Somehow they must have forgiven each other and have moved on, because now they're releasing new music and a new album which is due to be released this year. Even Triple J played one of their new songs in 2021, although it was only a spot play and we haven't seen them fully return to their playlist. At the end of the day, Sticky Fingers got so big that they didn't really even need Triple J. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. It's that it's not worth continuing to condemn this band, and we shouldn't be so easily triggered by a headline or a rumour that might be untruthful or out of context. Ultimately, that's where all this has stemmed from, a rumour that Dylan said or did something that he staunchly claimed he did not. Give them a chance to reconcile, and let's just enjoy their music together. Hey everyone, Liam here, thanks for listening and watching this video. I really hope that this message got through to you and that we can at least agree on some points. I know it could be a controversial topic, but hey, I felt like being bold and putting it out there and giving my 2 cents. But if you like this video and you want to see more stuff about Australian music, Triple J, West Australian music as well, I talk a lot about, please subscribe to this channel, give me a like, give me a comment, and yeah, we'll see you more in the future on this channel, hopefully. Thanks, bye.